Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Prinilla Primus from PA111. My group will present a report regarding about macroeconomics problem that occur in Malaysia, which is national income. But before that, let me introduce my group member. In my group member, we have Mohamad Raziq Syazwan, Norain Wanga, and Nurlezah Zulkefli. Okay, let me introduce you guys about what national income is. National income is the total value a country's final output for all new goods and services produced in 1 year. For Malaysia's GDP, decreased at a slower pace of 2.7% from the double-digit decline 17.1% in the second quarter of 2020. The economic performance during this pandemic period is also measured the only monthly basis where July posted a lower decline 2.7%. August contracted to negative 3.6%, while September improved to a smaller negative 1.6%. On a quarter adjusted. GDP elevated to 18.2%, hence the COVID-19 outbreak has changed the economic landscape in terms of production level, household spending, investment, and labor market. In the third quarter of 2020, a continuous recovery is seen in the country's economic performance amid the challenge to contain the spread of COVID-19 pandemic through various phases of movement control order MCO effective from 10 June 2020 with the reopening of economic activities and lift the ban in interstate travel. As more economic sector resume, the unemployment rate slightly dropped to 4.7% in this quarter as compared to 5.1% in the second quarter. Furthermore, in the third quarter, the growth was uplifted by the rebounded performance of manufacturing sector, while other sectors show an improved negative growth compared to the previous quarter. Overall, the performance in the third quarter was mainly driven by the manufacturing sector, which grew 3.3% compared to the decline 18.3% in the previous quarter. Supported by electrical, electronic, and optical, vegetable and animal oil, fats, and food processing products. The favorable performance was attributed by export-oriented industries, which turned around to 5.0%, and this was reflected in the performance to total export in month of September 2020, which recorded a positive double-digit growth.
Department of Statistics Malaysia had published data involving Malaysia's economy posted a smaller decline of 2.7% in third quarter 2020. The bar chart shows the agriculture sector slightly dropped by 0.7% due to the decrease of fishing and rubber subsectors. However, other agriculture, palm oil and livestock subsectors have cushioned the smaller decline in this sector. In this quarter, Malaysia has benefited from the substantial increase of crude palm oil prices, which grew by 37.5% compared to 15% in the preceding quarter. The increase in crude palm oil prices was influenced by the higher global demand from Malaysia's major trading partners, India and China. The services sector recorded a smaller negative 4%, an improvement from negative 16.2% in the second quarter of 2020. The better performance in finance and insurance and information and communication subsectors have contributed to the reduced contraction in this sector. The wholesale and retail trade subsector recorded a smaller contraction of 2.5%, supported by the Motor vehicle notable performance, which began to recover with positive growth. This was in line with the exemption of the sales tax for locally assembled cars and lower tax for the government's imported vehicles to boost the motor vehicle sales in this quarter. Furthermore, as the pandemic still engulfed the country, sales of essential items were the wholesale and retail activities driving factor. Thus, this contributed to the retail segment to record decreasing margin as the sales volume of business has decreased compared to the previous year. Nevertheless, tourism-related industries such as food and beverages and accommodation subsectors registered a smaller decrease driven by lift-up interstate travel ban, which boosts the domestic tourism activities. Transportation and storage subsectors remain decreased due to the continuous double-digit negative in air transport, especially in passenger segment. The construction sector fell 12.4% due to the decline in all parts except for specialized construction activities. This was reflected by returning to regular operating hours at construction sites during the recovery movement control order. For this quarter, among the states which performed better were Sarawak, Pulau Pinang, and Terengganu. In terms of performance by sector, both public and private sectors recorded an improved negative growth. Meanwhile, mining and quarrying sector registered a smaller decline of 6.8% from negative 20% in the previous quarter. The performance was mainly attributed by improvement in production of natural gas and crude oil and condensate.
Now I'm going to analyze the effect of national income to economic growth. Is unprecedented period caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the efficiency of production capacity, whereby some industries had to bear fixed or higher expenses on inputs but experiencing a decline or slower outputs. This had caused an increase in the input-output ratio or production efficiency, which subsequently marginalizing the value added. This is experienced by the accommodation, restaurant, retail, trade, and recreation. Besides that, there are also few industries facing challenges to sustain economies of scale due to the lack of demand, which will lead to unfavorable condition to the economic activities. The absence of foreign traveler spending in our country is also a loss of income to our business that eventually lead to price disequilibrium in the market. As for demand segment, private final consumption expenditure posted a smaller decrease, 2.1%, backed by the expenditure on the essential items such as food and non-alcoholic beverage, housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels and communication. Moreover, recreation services and cultural, restaurant and hotel and furnishing, household equipment and routine household maintenance, which is an essential expenditure, show better negative growth in this quarter. The lower price of automotive fuels and competitive price offered by tourism products has encouraged the domestic travel activities within states. In addition, active online shopping activities of households has also surged the performance in private consumption. Consumption on transport has also lifted to smaller declines spotted by the substantial growth on purchase of cars that consumer benefited from the exemption of sales tax. Based on quarter-on-quarter performance, private final consumption expenditure elevated to strong double-digit of 28.9% in this quarter. Government final consumption expenditure expanded to 6.9% from 2.3% in the preceding quarter due to higher spending in supplies and services. Furthermore, in the third quarter of 2020, export of goods and services decreased at a lower pace, 4.7%, mainly supported by recovery in goods. However, export of services remains subdued as international borders still shut for tourism activities. Import of goods and services registered a lower decline, 7.8%, due to improvement in import of goods, while import of services further declined in tandem with the lower outbound travelers. Subsequently, net export increased strongly, 21.9%, from a decline of 38.6% in the previous quarter. Commenting further on the performance of Malaysia's export and import of services, as borders are still closed for tourism activities, export of services to continue in decreasing trend. The investment on fixed asset, or known as gross fixed capital formation, decreased 11.6% in the third quarter of 2020 due to decline in all types of assets, namely structure, machinery and equipment, and other assets. The declining trends in GFCF was observed since the first quarter of 2019, and this is a concern as investment plays a significant role in a country's future output generation. The reduction in investment may cause a low capacity for future production and subsequently will affect the potential output. In the past few months, most firms have reviewed their business strategies to ensure business sustainability while adhering to standard operating procedures during MCO. This includes reducing operating hours and limiting number of employees working at one particular time. Subsequently, the number of employed persons working less than 30 hours per week went up during the first 3 quarters of 2020, which is known as underemployment. This refers to the situation of people working fewer than 30 hours per week that leads to the labor underutilization.
Discuss appropriate measures to overcome the macroeconomics problem. Undoubtedly, the national debt needs attention. There is a need to improve government finance statistics in the near future. Perhaps it would be wise for the government to employ a new method of statistics known as nowcasting, as opposed to the traditional forecasting. Nowcasting can address issue of delay in the availability of data and assess several macroeconomic indicators such as public sector debt, which can be done using the high frequency numbers such as daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. With nowcasting, the government will be able to have real-time fiscal surveillance, which allows for more timely response to emerging signs of fiscal stress before it is too late. The report of nowcasting for national debt and deficit, for instance, can also be included in the yearly budget report so that more true and transparent analysis can be conducted about the real state of the country's deficit and debt level. As for the soaring cost of living, measures the people purchasing power, especially the B40 and M40 groups, are needed. For the short term, the Economic Action Council could come up with more creative ways to expand the social safety net for the B40 and M40, such as devising a coupon system to be used for essential goods and nutritional foods. Besides that, I also believe that the time has come for cooperatives to play a bigger role. Now is a good time to empower and build them up. There are many models worldwide which we can learn from and adopt, from first world to third world nations. The bottom line is that we need to design a new economic model that can be redistribute and regenerate the limited resources to the target segment of the population in a most optimum way. For a long term, income and wage must eventually go up faster than the cost living. This requires a systematic and holistic plan to overhaul our education system and boost the level of productivity of Malaysians. True reform in the labor market is crucial. such as need to address our dependence on foreign workers, which is seen as a major cause of suppressing wage levels. Accelerating labor productivity, embracing digitalization and innovation are the ways forward. What Malaysia needs right now is the direction of where of economy is headed. Most importantly, the new economic vision more cater to and embrace the challenge of 21st century.
Moreover, the government stimulus package and the short-term economic recovery plan have softened the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and pave a path toward economic recovery. We welcome the findings and recommendations of the newly released World Bank Malaysia Economic Monitor. It provides a cogent analysis of the current economic challenge and will help inform our effort to accelerate the post-COVID-19 pandemic recovery process, said Dr. Sri Mustafa Mohamad, Minister in the Prime Minister Department in charge of the economy. Important social protections measures are needed to help vulnerable Malaysians survive the current economic storm and thrive in the new post-pandemic reality. Protecting livelihood is important so that those who have lost their jobs and business are able to get back on their feet and contribute to Malaysia's economic recovery, said Firas Raat, World Bank Group representative to Malaysia and country manager. The report recommends that in the near terms, government effort focus on supporting and relief and recovery effort by deepening social assistance for lower income households, improving the delivery of social protections program, and promoting job recovery. As the recovery continues, further sources of cash transfer will remain vitally important to mitigate acute financial strain among the most vulnerable groups in Malaysian society and to support domestic consumption and human capital development during a severe economic downturn. Lastly, over the medium and long-term support for lower income groups can be gradually expanded to ensure that Malaysia's social protection system provides a minimum level of protection to all households and the individuals in need. This goal is well aligned with the country's own shared prosperity agenda and the equity outcomes of many high-income and developed nations, which Malaysia is also aspiring to achieve.
Last but not least, I'm going to conclude about this discussion. In conclusion, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government's COVID-19 stimulus packages are expected to contribute over 4 percentage points to GDP growth, according to the economic report, noting that government's all 4 stimulus packages comprising fiscal and non-fiscal measures totaled RM 305 billion or 21% of the nation's GDP. As the country recovers from the impact of COVID-19, hoping economic growth will return to a more sustainable growth path. As such, the government should prioritize essential areas such as improving the ease of doing business, enhancing the usage of technologies and the digitalization across public and private sectors, as well as ensuring a stable labor market. Lastly, the government should continue to provide necessary support for SMEs, small and medium enterprise, to prosper in the new environment, including the potential for going global. That's all from us. Thank you.